Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We have some draft stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. Just got done watching the first round of the 2025 NFL draft, and everybody probably knows at this point, but the Giants didn't just end up drafting at 3, but ended up trading from the second round to 25 and drafted a quarterback. We'll start off with our first pick, the number 3 overall pick. And honestly, this is the pick I am genuinely the most excited about because, in my opinion, Abdule Carter was by far and away the best prospect in this entire draft class. I know there's some people that may have thought Travis Hunter, and I wouldn't argue with you. I think it's really just whatever flavor you want, whatever flavor ice cream you want. I'm not necessarily a guy that's so gung-ho on wide receivers. I know he plays wide receiver and corner, but I think looking at the Giants position right now and looking at the Giants organization and their history, pass rush is essentially baked into our DNA. If you look back at our 2007, 2011 Super Bowl runs, we wouldn't have won either one of those games if it wasn't for our pass rush. And we didn't do it with just 2 guys. You need to make your strength a strength. And just because we have players like Kayvon Thibodeau or Brian Burns, that should not stop you from drafting a player like Abdule Carter. Like, this guy is essentially Micah Parsons 2.0. A lot of Giants fans were upset when we traded back in 2021, drafted Kadarius Toney and forfeited our right to draft someone like a Micah Parsons. Well, now we finally had that opportunity, and I'm glad the Giants didn't overthink this, didn't panic at the position, didn't trade back thinking that they were going to, didn't want to take their quarterback at 3 and then ended up trading back and then taking their quarterback there. I know I've said a lot of negative things about this coaching regime and this front office, and those things still stand. Like, just because I'm giving them praise for this one draft pick doesn't mean that I'm absolving them of everything that they've ever done over the last 2 years. But I'm happy to know that they made the smart decision. They didn't panic. They took the bona fide gold jacket edge rusher that's going to be terrorizing quarterbacks in the NFC East for many years to come, hopefully for many years to come. And another thing too, during the draft, I heard Joe Shane announce that they're actually picking up the 5th-year option on Kayvon Thibodeau. So for all the people that were thinking that, hey, if we draft Abdule Carter, what are we going to do with Kayvon, or are we going to trade him in the draft in order to move up? And is Kayvon going to be traded mid-season? No. And that's the problem with a lot of people thinking, look, if you have a strength on a team, if you have a player like Kayvon and you have a player like Abdule Carter, when trading someone like Kayvon after drafting Abdule Carter, I feel like you're just like running in place, right? Make your strength a strength. Build on it. Have these guys be rotational pieces so that they're always fresh going into games, when they're always fresh in the 4th quarter, when they're always fresh on 3rd and longs. And Abdule Carter is a special circumstance because, like I said, he's very reminiscent to someone like Micah Parsons, where he's not just going to be strictly lining up on the edge every single down. You can move him around like a linebacker. You can have him blitz up the middle. You can move him. You can have him being stacked in the box. You can move him out wide. You can even have him drop back in coverage. This was the smart move. This was the right move. And this was the necessary move, even though, and this is where I'm giving them credit, drafting someone like an Abdule Carter isn't going to magically make you go from winning, 2 or 3 games to, being Super Bowl contenders. I mean, maybe it will years from now when he develops, and let's be clear, he's only been an edge rusher for only 1 year. And I respect that about Joe Shane. I respect that about Brian Dable for not putting their own futures ahead of the team, because drafting Abdule Carter was absolutely a team first move. But the night wasn't done, and throughout the entire day, we were hearing, as Giants fans, a lot of smoke, a lot of rumors that the Giants were very interested in potentially trading up from the 2nd round in order to draft their quarterback, and that quarterback specifically being Jaxson Dart. And typically when you're during draft week, especially the weeks leading up to draft night and even on draft day, the rumors that you hear, take them with a pillar of salt, because you don't know what's real, what's a misdirection, what's just trying to get other teams to try to trade up ahead of you and bite so that you're able to get, quote unquote, your guy that you really want. And turns out all these leaks were real, and that the Giants were genuinely interested in Ole Miss quarterback Jaxson Dart. I got to be honest, I'm not completely familiar with Jaxson Dart's game. I wasn't expecting the Giants to draft a quarterback like Jaxson Dart. To be honest, I didn't expect them to draft any quarterback. The only quarterback I thought that they would be interested in was Cam Ward, and since he was already off the table, I kind of had written off most of the quarterbacks, kind of in my draft scouting analysis, my couch GM mode. And so I'll have to do some more research on him. I know he is from Utah, my home state. He did, I believe he played high school in the same high school I went to, which is pretty cool. It's Ole Miss, Eli Manning, you got those ties there, so it's going to make some people, make comparisons. I don't think Jaxson Dart is necessarily Eli Manning. I'd be, that'd be foolish of anybody to say just because, don't be a helmet scout. But I'm glad that they were able to come up, traded with the Houston Texans, didn't give up the farm to do so. Unlike, the Atlanta Falcons who traded up shortly after us with the Rams, and I believe gave up a future first in order to move up. The Giants, I believe, only gave up a late third round pick and then a future third round pick. So, if the Giants were to have given up a future first, I would have been a lot more upset. You would have seen a lot more ranting and raving in this video. But because the price was so small, and you can genuinely tell that the Giants were seriously interested in Jaxson Dart, and Jaxson Dart was their guy. So if you trade up, you get the 5th-year option, you get an extra year of control. He doesn't have to start immediately. Look, we have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston on the roster, 2 solid veterans that he can sit behind for a year and learn how to be a pro. I'm glad that the excuses are going to be over, where, if things don't go the Giants' way and, maybe a year or two from now, Jaxson Dart struggles. I don't want to hear the whole, they never had an opportunity to get their guy, because now this is their guy. They chose Jaxson Dart. He was a first-round quarterback that they traded up for. He's their guy. So the excuses are done. They had their opportunity. Now, it's not like I'm not wishing Jaxson Dart. I'm not wishing for him to fail, right? Because he's a New York Giant. He's the New York Giants quarterback. Probably not this year. He might play a little bit, maybe at the end of the year, depending if the Giants are out of contention. But he's the New York Giants' future at the quarterback position, and I'm fully behind him. I'm going to give him all the support, right? I'm not going to wish for him to fail just because I'm not a huge fan of this regime. Like I said, not super familiar with his game. I know he is a great deep ball passer. I know a lot of people like to knock the Ole Miss offense kind of being a bit gimmicky, but I always feel like, they say that Ole Miss 4 verts, it's a 1 read, and if it's not there, then just run. I think most college offenses have a gimmick one way or another. Maybe Ole Miss's is just a little bit more evident. Who knows? But seems like a cool seems like a cool kid. Seems like he has a lot of arm talent, and seems like he might even be a pretty solid runner with the football. And he kind of seems like the stereotypical archetype that you would expect Brian Dable to be going after. So I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad that, like I said, I'm glad they were able to get their guy. Super excited about Abdule Carter. I feel like, him along with Kayvon and Brian Burns and Dexy in the middle, this defense has potential to be a serious problem moving forward. And, I was kind of hoping that we would be able to retain our 2nd round pick and maybe get somebody like an Alfred Collins and really solidify that offense or that defensive line and, really, add that run support. But you know, you get your quarterback, so you can't complain. Anyway, guys, it's getting super late. I have to work in the morning, but I appreciate you guys checking out this video, and I want to hear what you guys think about these picks. It's still super early for any of these players, right? And we still got some picks left to make. I think we only have one pick tomorrow or today, depending on when you're listening to it in the third round. So we'll have to, you know, see who that ends up being. Probably won't do a video tomorrow. Probably do another video at the end of the draft and, you know, do a kind of a recap. None of these players are going to be are sure things, right? There's players that are drafted that are supposed to be sure things and they end up busts. Giants seem like they have really bad luck with that. So I wish Abdule and Jaxson nothing but the best, and hopefully that these two players are going to be pillars for the Giants going forward, and hopefully we see them hoisting up a Lombardi one day. Who knows? That's just me. That's just me being very, very, very cautiously optimistic. But we'll have to wait and see. And yeah, until next time, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.